What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review Dream Scenario starring the great Nicolas Cage. The movie's getting released tomorrow through A24, and in that this weekend is going to be totally dominated by discussions of Marvel's slow, inexorable decline. I thought it'd be an opportune time for a little counter-programming and discuss a very weird, and for the most part, very entertaining original movie not based on a toy or a game or a comic or any pre-existing IP. And after I saw the trailer, what I immediately thought of was this period in the late 90s where we'd get these kind of, smaller scale movies with a big star, but with this off the beaten path sense of humor. And some of those movies did succumb to this horrible, nauseatingly feel-good sentimentality. But luckily, this movie Dream Scenario is far more strange and diabolical and kind of cynical than the trailer originally led me to believe. And I have to admit, I was pretty much laughing and smiling throughout the entire movie. And there's one scene that was so goddamn funny. I pulled something in my ribs. I was like, oh my God, am I having a fucking heart attack like right here in the theater? But luckily, I was just laughing really hard and having a good time. But if you're unfamiliar with the premise, the movie was written and directed by Kristoffer Borgli, whose previous movie, Sick of Myself, came out in 2022. And I'm embarrassed to admit I have not seen it, even though one of my favorite film commentators, Bret Easton Ellis, the author, on his podcast, he was speaking at length about how much he liked the movie, or at least I think he was talking about, somebody was talking about Sick of Myself last year and how great it was. So I'll definitely be putting Kristoffer Borgli's past and future movies on my calendar moving forward. But the movie almost plays like a lighthearted, kind of breezy, almost bordering on inconsequential remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, because suddenly, for whatever reason, like it starts out as a small phenomenon and it slowly grows. People start dreaming about the world's biggest dorky dad. And he's a respected figure at his university. He's a tenured professor. He's got plenty of accomplishments. He's got a loving wife and two loving daughters. And they kind of regard him as a goober, which he is, but they love and adore him. But he is one of those middle-aged guys who's on the cusp of old age who wouldn't mind a little bit more kind of recognition or a little bit more notoriety. You can tell he's wrestling with feelings of inadequacy, almost like he hasn't made the mark that he would like to make. And suddenly, people start dreaming about him, and he's not even really doing anything. In these dreams, something totally deranged and strange will be happening, and he'll just be sitting there and kind of passively observing. And I should add that none of this is a spoiler. It comes right from the trailer. But because of these dreams, he finds himself turning into this like overnight phenomenon. And of course, once you achieve any sort of like online notoriety or celebrity, there's a good side, like people want to take their picture with you and they talk about how much they love you. And there's the dark side where through no fault of your own, people who might be just a tad unwell mentally can react in a variety of very strange ways. And what I found fascinating about this movie was how it's not aggressive and it's not trying to like poke society with a stick, but it is holding up a mirror to our very strange culture and our very strange present day. And what was such a relief about this movie was how it was able to wrestle with so many contemporary issues without ever coming across as like being dogmatic or heavy-handed, because it's dealing with like 2023 campus culture and cancel culture and the perils of internet celebrity, and also just the indignities of the aging process and the lack of virility. But more than anything, the movie's just about the madness of crowds. and before long, the character played by Nicolas Cage just finds himself wrapped up in some of the most strange, bizarre, confrontational situations imaginable. But what's interesting about the movie is how it kind of plays with the idea of where like you don't quite know if he's actually doing anything or if this is just a phenomenon that's totally disassociated from his own actions, and can he do anything to influence kind of the flavor or the texture of the dreams that are being experienced about him? Because as is also revealed in the trailer, the dreams start to take on a different turn, sometimes more erotic, sometimes more violent, and that's when the movie really finds that extra special gear. But what I enjoyed most of all was just seeing Nicolas Cage putting his best foot forward and showing the world that as an actor, his talents remain 100% intact, because one of the most loathsome kind of trends of the last like 10 or 15 years has been like this camp of Nicolas Cage fans where they don't actually like Nicolas Cage. They don't like his good movies. They like watching his shitty movies, and they love just kind of like pointing their fingers at him and laughing. Like they think he's someone to be like kind of shat on from a great height, as opposed to like respected and admired for movies like Wild at Heart or Raising Arizona. Either Raising Arizona or Peggy Sue Got Married. One of those two was the first movie I ever saw him in, but basically for almost 40 years now, I've been thoroughly enjoying his performances. Yeah, and admittedly, he has made tons and tons and tons of crappy movies, But very rarely does he turn in a crappy performance. Like, take something like Bad Lieutenant Port of Call. Like, do I think it's as good as the original Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel? Hell no. But Nicolas Cage is fucking great in it. And after having done so many action movies like Con Air or Face Off or The Rock, like all the big movies in the late 90s where he suddenly became this huge superstar, basically movies where he had like long flowing hair and like bulging muscles and a lot of that BDE, that big dick energy, I think it takes a ton of testicular fortitude to play a very small, insecure, kind of doughy man where he's got a big pot belly, he's balding. I'm in no position to criticize, but he's a balding man. He's got bad posture. He dresses like a dork, like he is the world's biggest goober, a lovable goober, and he's just a huge nerd, but there's this unmistakable feeling that time is just passing him by and he has not yet made the mark that he would like to make. Like what he really wants to do is write a book about evolutionary biology, about ants. Like that's his area of expertise. But then the world just goes completely fucking stark raving nuts all around him, and he just gets sucked up into the maelstrom. And watching Nicolas Cage's reactions and watching the range of this performance, it was just an absolute delight seeing that he still got it. It's kind of like when we saw Robert Downey Jr. playing an actual character, an Oppenheimer. And even he acknowledged, he's like, it was just a relief to see that I still knew how to do those kinds of roles. And I feel like for every big, giant blockbuster movie, actors need to go off and make 2 or 3 movies like this just to get back in touch with like what this art form of cinema is all about. It's about emotion. It's about originality. It's about taking you to strange and unusual places. And without giving anything away, I would argue that this movie is 100% worth seeing just for one scene. And I think because I'm an aging man myself, I was able to relate to it on a very deep emotional level. But I think no matter what age you are, whether you're 5 or 85 or anything in between, people are going to laugh. But all I'll tease is that basically he meets one of his biggest admirers or one of his biggest fans. And I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that did such a good job of capturing that weird, awkward, embarrassed, kind of fumbling energy of an aging man when he's spending time with a much younger woman. Someone who's very confident and very sexually assertive at any rate. As I mentioned before, I nearly broke a rib from laughing so hard. I was absolutely screaming in the theater. And that scene features an actress who I'd never seen before in a movie, but her name is Dylan Galula, and I imagine we'll be seeing a lot more of her in the near future. But I should also give a shout out to actress Julianne Nicholson. She's always been good. I mean, she's been doing great work for a very long time, but she plays the wife of Nicolas Cage's character, and she's incredible. Their chemistry is just so real and so heartfelt, and her own bewilderment at it being married to this guy who suddenly finds himself like to be this, larger than life internet phenomenon. It's very grounded without breaking the spell of this very absurdist drama that we're watching. And what's really cool about the movie is how, as we see all these dreams unfold from the point of view of the person having the dream, but as the outside world starts getting increasingly strange all around Nicolas Cage's character, what I loved is how it becomes increasingly difficult to figure out, is somebody dreaming what I'm seeing right now, or is this actually his real life? And I feel like the way this movie very subtly kind of blurs the lines between dreams and reality was really well done. And also, Michael Cera is fantastic in this as well. I mean, Michael Cera, he's obviously got a lot of great comedies under his belt, but it was cool seeing him step outside of his normal comfort zone or his normal range and play a very different part. A role which allows the movie to offer some pretty withering criticisms of just internet culture and celebrity culture and pop culture in general, and the way any sort of influencer very quickly can get kind of corrupted and destroyed and sucked into some very strange, deranged activities. But I have one major criticism, and it's not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a major flaw. The movie just kind of fizzles and fades away and just kind of just disintegrates into nothingness at the end, as opposed to leaving us with like a devastating scene. And I think you can tell sometimes with like a really good screenplay that they have a great idea for a movie, and they put all their best scenes and their best moments into the first like 15, 20 pages of the script, and that really allows the movie to hit the ground running. Although in the case of this flick, I'd say the best material is right around the middle, where it suddenly takes a darker turn and gets much more violent, much more disturbing. But the ending, it's kind of building, and then it just kind of, it's like, all right, well, we give up. We don't know how to end the movie, so we're just going to let it kind of fade to black. It's like, no, fuck you. You don't get off so lightly. You need to have an ending or a scene or something or an idea or a concept that's just as original as what's come before. And there's some funny bits leading up right to the end, but yeah, like the last 5 minutes, I was like, yeah, you fumbled the bag, you dropped the ball, whatever metaphor you want to use. I don't even know if fumbled the bag is an expression, but whatever figure of speech you like to use. the movie just fades into nothingness. And so I do think it's going to make it a tougher sell to convince people to go to a theater and slap down money to see this. It's increasingly difficult these days to get anybody to go to the theater unless it's to see one of these big, giant franchise flicks. However, the most recurring complaint that I hear from people my age or older is always, well, how come they don't make movies for adults anymore? I'm like, well, if you would go to the theater and spend money to see movies, then they would make movies for you. But if 18-year-old kids go to see the latest Marvel extravaganza, guess what? They're going to continue to make those. And so I'm going to encourage everybody who pines for or who yearns for adult entertainment. I don't mean porn, but I just mean movies with adult sensibilities. If they want to see more of those movies in the theater, you have to put your money where your mouth is and support these flicks when they come along. Although support's the wrong word. I feel like when you say, oh, I'm going to support that movie, what that implies is that you're actually not going to enjoy it, that you're not going to be entertained. You will be entertained by Dream Scenario. I think most people will. I mean, A24, they are probably the world's most reliable brand in the world of movies with a unique style, movies with an adult sensibility, movies that actually have a few ideas that are being explored. I mean, A24 at this point, their track record over the last 10, 15 years is just absolutely fucking incredible. And very rarely do they attach the A24 logo to a movie that's not at least pretty good. Of course, every once in a while they have a movie blow up in their face, but I do think Dream Scenario is going to find an audience. It's just most likely going to find an audience once it drops on Netflix or some other platform. Be like, oh my God, like how come people weren't talking about it? Well, here I am talking about Dream Scenario, putting it on people's radar. I think it's worth watching, and I think Kristoffer Borgli, from what I've seen in this movie, has the potential to be the next really cool writer-director. I don't think he'll ever be as dark or disturbing as someone like Todd Solondz. I mean, Todd Solondz in the late 90s, early 2000s, between Welcome to the Dollhouse and Happiness and storytelling, and people were like, oh my God, like who is this guy? He was kind of the poster child for like the most edgy, disturbing independent cinema going on at that time. But I always enjoy discovering a new filmmaker where I can get genuinely excited about their upcoming work. So there it is. I'm recommending people see Dream Scenario. It's not going to completely, utterly change your life, but it is a very enjoyable, very watchable kind of indie drama that goes to some very strange, delirious, dark places. And it's just a relief to see that Nicolas Cage has still got it. Like I said, I've been watching him in flicks for 40 years, and he's got so many incredible performances. Like in every decade, 80s, 90s, aughts, teens, and now the 20s. Every once in a while, he'd say, you know what? I'm still fucking Nicolas Cage. Check me out. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people come away from this movie saying that this is one of the best performances of his career. But that's it. That's all I've got. I know right now there's so many kind of like specialty films and foreign films and indie films that are all competing for people's eyeballs and attention basically throughout November and December. You can almost kind of drown in all the awards contenders, but I do think this one will break through because it actually makes people laugh, and that is a rare, wonderful, beautiful thing. But I hope you enjoyed my video. If so, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell, making me as big a star as Nicolas Cage is in the movie Dream Scenario, hopefully without all the weird, dark, murderous kind of side effects and whatnot. But I hope everybody has a great weekend, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.